few seconds that we wait for this thing to go live. And we're just going to hang out here, Brittany Renee, and let it go live here.
I love it.
Seriously, we're going to get you back to that music video that you were shooting that we interrupted you for here in just a little bit. But it's so nice to
Thanks.
see you. Like, it is
Thanks.
so cool to have you and to be speaking with you here. And it looks like we're live, so we're good to go. So I'll stop saying, hey, are we live? Yes, we are. So we're good to go. Brittany Renee, is so damn good to see you. The baby on TikTok, you guys have got to check this out. And just breaking cycles. You're just like shooting codes everywhere. You're leveling up like crazy, and you're illuminating everything around you. And it's just a beautiful thing to see. So to invite you here is my great honor, young lady, to be able to sit down and hang out with you here. So for the audience not too familiar with you, and of course we're going to be linking all the ways to find you in the show descriptions and all of that good kind of stuff so y'all can follow along. For that audience that's not too familiar, in your own words, a little about you.
Yes, of course. I'm so happy to be here, and I am so humbled to be here. This is so exciting. So for those of you who do not know me, I am Brittany Renee, or on TikTok, that Babe B has become the viral name. So I'm a psychic intuitive. I'm an energy healer. I work in the Akashic Records. I'm a life coach, motivational speaker, kind of all the things, right? We're coming into this full embodiment of all the things. I'm also a mother of two wonderful little men and just a traveler. So I'm super excited today to dive into all of the different topics on whatever comes up and comes our way, and super ready.
All the stuff, and it's just you're truly remarkable, and still got some interesting things to talk to you about the Luminous Education Revolution project that we're doing with Dr. Edith Mbudu Chan. You would love this woman. She's doing some remarkable things. We've actually got her scheduled to come on here in a few weeks, but that is a great connection that I cannot wait to
I
facilitate for
love
you.
that.
And so where do you want to start? Honestly, I'm going to let you set the tone. Usually I'm like, so what do you
Hmm.
think about? And I've got plenty of that, but what's been on your mind lately? Set the tone for us here.
Let's set the tone. Well, we were just kind of joking about this before we got on here live, but we're officially in the Lionsgate portal, which my whole body has been feeling for the last 2 days. My partner and I today were laughing because we both were like sitting in this little coffee shop, and all of a sudden I had one of those like Matrix moments, where like everything, you're like, I'm in a simulation. Like, this is not real. Yeah, so it's just been a couple of those days where it's been very out of body, very a little bit spacey. And so today, I was really feeling the Leo energy. I'm like really feeling the Venus energy. I'm like all here in the heart-centered, like raw energy, So I would love for you to kind of like just throw whatever questions that you've got at me, because I feel like I'm very like in the ethers. So I'm ready to channel. I'm ready to be here. I feel like my humanness is just the vessel that's going to be giving us all the good stuff tonight.
Okay, great. Then for that, then I have actually had a personal question that I would like answered, and this is a dead serious one. I've wanted to know this forever. Why has Rob Zombie Rob Zombie? Why has he not started a chain of Chinese restaurants themed, entitled "More Hunan Than Hunan"? This bothers me. Get into the Acacia. Let me know what's going on here. It's a missed opportunity on all parts. He's wasting everyone's time.
I hear you. I can't tap into his Akashic records out of just integrity, because but if he is on here or he sees this or catches wind, in a hashtag or something and gives me the go, I will totally do that for you.
What I feel is, I tend to get ahead of things, and I'm sure you're at this point with this as well, to where I feel like, as I describe it to the universe, I shake presents. Like my mom hated that because I always knew I was getting Legos because Legos are dope, and I was just like, yeah, they're Legos, and I knew by the size and all this, and I could tell you exactly what was in stuff, just by figuring it out. And the
Yeah.
universe can't stand this shit, and that's when it'll actually do the opposite in spite. But not really. It's fun. But the thing about this is it's sort of like predicting the outcome. So I'm open to be surprised by the universe, and this has just changed everything for me. Like this one little mantra, like they just show me, surprise the shit out of me. It's when I started tacking on the or something better to the stuff that I deeply desire. Give me or something better. It's that little consideration of flexibility that gives you all of the power, and this is what gives you everything. So, what do you think?
I am loving this topic. I talking about expansion and illumination, right? I think that we're getting to a point where collectively more people are starting to say, I want to manifest this like cool dream life, right? I want to be in this like dope relationship. I want to travel the world. I want to activate my gifts. I want to learn about, all these conscious things. I mean, people are getting more in tune with their health and all of their well-being all over, which is also amazing. But, I think that one of the magical pieces that a lot of people are catching on to is how powerful our words are, and it's a signal. And I teach my kids this. I'm like, all of your words are a signal. Have you done the rice experiment?
The rice experiment? No.
Okay.
Is it? Explain it for the audience, please.
Okay. So I have been telling my kids, and I'm like, what am I doing? I need to show them, right? So we got these little mini mason jars and we put rice in them, like cooked rice. And one of them was a love jar and the other one was a hate jar. And so every day we spoke love into the loved one and we spoke hate into the hate one. And within probably like 2 weeks, there is straight up mold growing on this hate one. And the loved one is just perfectly fine, pretty white rice. They're still sitting in my pantry, which is probably, they're not getting opened or anything, but they're still sitting there. And it's been months. And every time we have anything in like words around the house, I'm like, do we remember the rice experiment? What happened when we spoke hate? What happened when we said negative things? And my kids are like, it got moldy. I'm like, exactly. And I'm like, your words are power. So yes, we spoke love and we spoke hate to this, but this is for everything. And so I'll tell, my clients, my kids, anyone around me, including myself and my own little self-talks, like, let's just go bigger, right? Like, just tell yourself you can do it. And even like at the playground, my kids will try to do something and they'll be like so frustrated. And then I'll just give them this look and they're like, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can do this, and then they'll get it and then they'll go bigger. So for me, I have been in the mantra the past year of thank you for showing me how good it gets. That was just like every day. It was just like, thank you for showing me how good it gets. And even when I was just in it, I'm like, you know what? Thank you for cleaning up whatever needed to be cleaned up.
Yeah.
But I love that. I think it's so important. And I am always like pushing, like, what's the next stretch? What's the next expansion? How much deeper can it be? And I love the surprises from the universe.
I love it too. Or have you gotten to the point, and if so, when did it flip to where you weren't expecting lessons and you were just knowing that the flow was going to occur? Do you know what I mean by lessons? Where you're like, okay, like when I would say, okay, I'm leveling up now, in my mind, and whether that was true or not, I knew that meant, number one, I'm leveling up. Like I'm pushing the button on the elevator and we are going up, but there's a grate there. That there's a bunch of muck stuck to me that I can't fit through that grate. So it gets scraped off in the most painful way. And it feels like I'm, I want to say like we're done with that shit. Like did you feel like that your level ups didn't encourage just like feeling like you were being skinned alive whenever you did it spiritually? You know what I mean? Have you gotten to that point yet?
Yes. It was really when I befriended like the shadow parts of me, and really when I befriended my inner child, when I befriended, sacred rage, which right now in the planetary alignment that's happening, like whatever you want to call shadow feminine, dark feminine, right? Like I saw a post the other day that was like, basically what we're doing is going to the underbelly of the dark feminine right now. Like sacred rage is just like oozing from the collective. And all I can think is like, yeah, like let's get there. Like, let's just allow ourselves to be in that space. And that was when, for me, the up leveling weren't lessons necessarily, even if I understand like there's lesson in things. Sure. It was more, okay, like this is my time to commune with this part of me that's really, really uncomfortable right now and really doesn't want to be seen as really, in whatever space it is. So yeah, for me, it was befriending my shadow self or the polarity that maybe I don't love about me all the time. And I can't even really say that anymore because it's like I love all the parts of me. I'm like, I love when I'm like, what are they calling it? Villain era, because I just have that sacred rage moment with like movement or music. And I love when I'm in like the ethers and I'm in like angelic energy, right? It's like the whole. And so when I started embodying who I was as a whole, it was just like, this is where we're at today. This is the piece we're sitting with today, but it is. And, it's that cycle. We talked about this on the other podcast, is you get stuck in this cycle of just like woe is me almost, like, oh yeah, I'm in this up level, but this sucks. And I'm like, this totally, there is a shift that has to happen. You have to start to just sink your feet in, plant your flag, say like, this is a beautiful part of this journey. And even if it's hurting like nothing ever has hurt, we're going to like witness that part.
It's this resolve from the American bison, because a lot of people call them buffaloes, but they're not. Buffaloes are in Africa, bison are here. And that's just a little fun fact for a lot of folks that may have programmed into that. And that's okay. A lot of cartoons have done it. You haven't been dealt a helping hand when it comes to that consideration, but we will make it here. The bison, what it will do is when a storm comes, it can see the storm, and rather than freak out like all the other animals and run away from it, which as the storm moves in, inevitably makes the animals that are running in it longer, the bison will walk straight into that bitch and they will stand in that thing and they will watch it walk over them. And it's simply because they have a resolve, they have a constitution that says, and it's a wisdom as well, because they know if they're running from it, number one, it's cytokine storm, you're releasing all this stuff, you're getting all worked up for nothing, you're expending a bunch of energy. You're going to need to eat more later, and get your whatever, you're getting some cardio in, I suppose, but it's not for benefit. It's not for the reason that you think it is. It's a fear-based thing, but they have this resolve to walk through, which not only makes the experience that much more not only bearable, but just, I guess, there's got to be a confidence inciting thing in that, to know that you're this beast that just stands up in a storm and just like, no matter what it is, I'm going to be here for it, because if I stand here, you have more awareness, sort of like waking up and working out every morning. Yeah, it sucks. Like nobody wants to do that, but you know that the end result is so much better than the stagnancy or anything else. So it's this forward understanding that takes a lot of getting smacked in the face with bricks and trucks and the spiritual shadows and all sorts of stuff, and getting, crying and all the things, which I don't feel like you said that any of that goes away, but it does soften because you're in communication. Like you've illuminated all the parts of yourself. So everything is seen and had and heard, even if you're still working on how to speak and integrate it. But it feels like everyone is at least visible and they're heard and they're there. But even if one has a little bit of doubt, you just sit with that one and it's okay. And there's this integrative process, but sometimes there's a dude, we're going either way process. And it's just a fascinating resolve that you've gotten to with this that I feel like I'm on the other side of. Honestly, there's this, and why I asked is that I'm in the midst of this last little level up. The month, it sucked. It really, really sucked. It was challenging and it was great. And the whole time I'm sitting here, the bison in the storm saying, dude, this too shall pass, this too shall pass. But now it doesn't feel like this backsliding thing. It doesn't feel like I'm going to, like it doesn't feel like it's going to be as challenging. You know what I mean? It really feels like a level up. So that's why I was curious about yours.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I think there's a part when you become conscious where you almost want these like badges of honor, right? Of like, I've done shadow work. I know my ego. It's like all these check boxes that it's like, I've met this part of me. And then you just get to a level in the experience where you're like, I don't know shit. Like, I'm just here for the refinement. I'm like a part of this journey. I'm in my process. And for me, the trigger moment was I was going through a divorce and I was a single mother of 2 kids and I had no idea. Like, it was just one of those, like, how are we paying for things? How are we going to have a place? I was working kind of part-time for another company. And it was this like, just kind of break moment during this grieving that it was like, I was bawling and crying. And then it was just this moment that like clicked. And it was like, you're good. Yeah. Like everything's okay. Like you're a badass. Everything's okay. Everything's going to be fine. And it was like, everything started to come in, but and I guide my clients through this. You have to make the space for that though, right? And that making space is the grieving, the crying, the sacred rage, the screaming, the movement, the whatever it is, because all of that stuff has to come out of you. So you can even have the channel open to be able to see clearly what's in front of you. So, a lot of people, I think they avoid, like, I don't want to break down. I don't want to be messy. And I'm like, the quicker you get messy, the quicker it becomes really clear where the next step is. So you're just standing in your own way. That's okay. We do that,
It's a hypersensitivity. And this is what's interesting too about, are you into psychedelics at all or?
I do not personally take them, but a lot of my clients do. So I heard all about the journeys.
Fair enough. And that's one of the things about ayahuasca in particular, the way it was put by Carlos Tanner, the director of the Ayahuasca Foundation. He's great. That's where Zach Efron went and did his Down to Earth thing, or it
Yeah.
was at Carlos's place. He's a buddy. He's super cool.
Yes, that was
My
great.
friend has gone down there. My mother-in-law's gone down there. Anyway, that's what he talked about, was this state of hypersensitivity that these sort of substances or these plant medicines put you in, where it mimics trauma in the sense that all of your shit is so open that you are receiving like crazy. Your data input level at a psychedelic level, as well as trauma, you're at this heightened state. Your eyes are dilated, your hearing is dialed to 11, your muscle reflex, all the things. And then whenever you do that, you're planting, the way that I visualize it was like nailing stakes in the ground, like hammers or splinters or something in that psyche, but it's within the
Mhm.
parameters of when you're in that state. Now, when you return to baseline, those things are still there, but you don't have access to them because you're not in that state. So it's an interesting thing, like I don't know, like putting Christmas lights up. You need the ladder to get back up there. So with that, there's a lot of ladders that you could choose, and that would be psychedelics. You know, what you're doing, all sorts of things. Even near-death experiences will do this for folks. So there seems to be a myriad of ways to interface with this type of phenomena, and it's just really interesting when you get down to the psychology of it, and just the way it changes people. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating. I mean, I love that. And, part of why I haven't done medicine yet is so I'm American Indian. We talked about this a little last time. I've grown up in a household being told I have gifts and all of these things. And I've always seen things and I kind of just pushed it off. Once I really embraced my gifts and I started activating them, like today when I was saying I was at the coffee shop and I'm in this moment, like I felt like I was tripping on medicine, or what it would feel like to be tripping on medicine, because it was this like almost reverb of like want energy, and everything became super crystal clear. And I like could hear like the glasses getting set on the table. And it was just, I have a lot of these moments, and then I'll do breath work and I'll have the same kind of experience. So I already get to these spaces so quickly that part of me is like, it's not on my journey yet to like go to whatever the next level of that is, because I'm already very open to a lot of it. I do feel like I'm eventually going to get there though. It's like, it's kind of inching in, and even like you bringing it up, I'm like, it's inching into my field more and more. So I don't know if it's ayahuasca we're going into or what, but I think it's a great facilitator though. I think medicine is a great facilitator for people. I mean, I have clients who reached spaces that they couldn't reach even in our work because of whatever belief or whatever program we just couldn't get through. And then they see it, and then we go back into our work and they're like, oh yeah, okay, this is the space, right? So it's just getting to those access points and then figuring out, how do I get back there, in whatever way.
I love it. It's like a translator. Some translators speak Russian and they can help you with that. Some speak Mandarin and they can help you with that. Some are psychedelics, some are speaking with someone, some are past life regressions, and there's many different ways to access those states. And psychedelics has been something that's just changed my life. That has been one of the biggest eye openers, third eye openers for me. My third eye is squeegee right clean
I
because,
love it.
and it has been just such a tremendous gift. And I had only set out to do medicine with the intention of like real focus, like, okay, let's do something with this one time. And it's when I did ayahuasca. Now, the most interesting, connected with grandmother ayahuasca 2 years ago. And one of the most interesting things is I still get mind-blowingly profound spiritual experiences, and even going into it with this intention of fun and saying, hey, I'm just going to have a blast, because I feel like that's the core of what it does
Yes.
allow you to do, is it frees all those barriers and limitations that you've been told to adapt here to fit in and be well adjusted to a sick society, right? Um, with psychedelics, I don't necessarily encourage the use of them. If you're called, definitely let me know though, because I know a bunch of people that facilitate a bunch of things in absolutely legit ways. And so this isn't like throwing a dart at a curandero phone book, basically. Like I can actually go, hey, this, and then give you quite a few options. So let me know
Oh,
if that's something that
noted.
continues to speak to you, and we'll get you the correct person for you. So
No.
I'm curious to come back to the sacred rage that you talked about. This sounds like something that is it something cyclical that occurs at a cycle, sort of at an astrological phase, or is it something that's been built up because there's not been a way for us to facilitate it in a, I guess, more open way, more regularly?
I think that, there are transits with planets and all of that assist in some of these things being more accessible. But sacred rage is always accessible. It's something that's always within us. I think, rage in general and grief, I'm happy is becoming more of an accepted process now, but it hasn't been, and I think especially I'm just going to speak to like here in the States, we are taught this program of, let's just say, death, right? When someone dies, there's the funeral, there's like the memorial, there's the go get, they get buried or whatever they do. And then that's it. Right. And there's so many people that talk about, I'm just still grieving, like a year after my mom's died. And like, I know I should be over this or whatever. And I'm like, where did this program, like, where was this? Who made this up? Like, we have to fix this, because there are, talk about like tribe mentality, right? There are certain tribes that literally would spend a month in celebration and in life. And, you would witness, women of, whether it was mothers or partners, literally like throwing themselves on like the caskets as they're like being paraded through like the village. And no one stops them. No one's like, something's wrong, go take a pill, you're not okay. They're like, she's grieving. Right. And so the thing is, we're talking about maybe death, but I mean, this can be about so many things, right? This could be about divorce. This could be about a major life change. This could be whatever. And the truth of it is we all hold grief and rage within us, but most of us have been programmed to dial it way down. Like, and it starts when we're little, it's like, don't do this, don't do that. Don't be too loud, don't be too big. And then that translates into our adultness of, don't be too much, don't be too crazy, don't go outside the lines, right? And I am so glad to be a part of this like age of Aquarius awakening conscious time right now, where we're all like, don't need that box, thank you. But there is a part still, there's a big part, I think, of the collective that's still like scared. They're like scared to grieve. They're scared to be sad. They're scared to, sometimes even if you get to the sad part, the rage part is where people get a little tripped up. And it's funny because it's the polarity that is similar to, we're scared to know our actual power, right?
Yeah.
We know we're powerful, but like, we don't want to really tap into what that means. And it's the same thing on the opposite side, is like, well, if I let myself get to the point of rage, well, that's really bad, right? Like, we can't do that. And I'm like, there's so much medicine in this. Like, there is so much medicine in just letting yourself go there. Like, if it's in your room by yourself, even better if you can be with a group of people and be witnessed in it. As a feminine, we carry, and I mean, all of us have masculine and feminine, right? But I'm going to speak as a female. We carry so much trauma, right? We are the portal ways to this planet. There is so much trauma that can happen just from being that alone. Like, don't even tack on all the other things, right? And this trauma gets carried through our cells, through our energetic lineages, through all sorts of pieces. And it's just continued to be pent up. And now we have so many circles that are starting to form. We have so many women that are starting to come out, and they're just showing the mess, it's kind of weird, right? To be like a content creator while also being a coach, while also trying to lead people, while also trying to be in your own experience. I have a rebrand in my company right now, and I was sending media to the person who's helping me with some of the reels and things. And she's like, do you have any like breakdown content? And I'm like, as weird as it is to say, yes, I do, because I've been like mid breakdown or like rage out. And I'm like, you know what? People need to see this. And I'll like throw my phone up on the tripod and just like let it go and keep in my process. So we do have a lot of people that are tapping into it, but there's definitely more. Like, there's nothing sweeter, in my opinion, when you are like just feeling all the feels, to just let it out. Like, whatever that looks like, whatever that means. For me, it's always like music and dancing and movement, and sometimes like slamming my hands on the ground and screaming, and these are things like I've taught my kids. I'm like, you're allowed to have bad days. Like, you're allowed to have days you don't even know why you're mad. You're allowed to like be frustrated, but you have to learn to let it out. Like, we can't have these bottles that are just constantly overflowing. And it's what happens, like we see people have breakdowns and they their like top just flies off because it's all of this stuff that has never been looked at, felt, released, accepted, and it just blows. And then there's guilt and shame because now they're the bad person who's, the explosion. And there's just so many pieces. So, sacred rage is something that rage can be sacred if you just allow it to be there. Like just allow it to have space. It doesn't have to have the whole room. It should for a moment, but it doesn't have to. But at least let it have like a corner, where you can just process. And right now, there is a lot of shadow aspects in relationships, especially that are coming up. And so, I'm feeling this in my own life. I'm seeing it in, clients that are having hard conversations, about things that they've kind of acted like this is okay, or, we're okay here. But in reality, like, it's kind of like we're getting the extra push from the planets right now to be like, actually, that's not okay. Actually, I need this. Actually, this is where the truth is, right? So,
and it's funny you say this because ayahuasca did this for me. That's the biggest gift that I can point to is that it dissolved my bullshit meter with myself. So I cannot lie to myself whatsoever. So I'm fucked when it comes to me just wanting to get away with things or me wanting to convince myself of things. It used to be very easy earlier. And it was just like, yeah, you don't need to do that because whatever. And I can argue any side of anything. And so with this, it was very important for me to really get true with me. And ayahuasca definitely facilitated this for me. That's one of the biggest impacts that it had on me. Now, something that you mentioned about the rage and something is so accurate about what you said. I just love hearing you speak. And so I just love your perspectives on these. And so with something that Pat Mahan talked to me about, which is another dear friend of mine, he's been on here with us, but we'll definitely get you connected, was the death of the importance of the thing. And this is something that just shocked my world and made me think so hard about a lot of this grieving and stuff, because yes, you do get to a point to where like we've talked about here, that maybe you're not healing constantly. Like we use the analogy, if your arm has been broken and you had a cast on it, you take the cast off at some point. Like you're not constantly healing, but there are adjustments and fine tunings that you make, the way that you said it. And with this comes the release of the old version of you. But I mean, I'm a different person than 30 minutes ago when we started this. So I'm aware, I'm better, because of having had this conversation. So there's a lot more that you can bring to your now from where you have been. So with this idea, how important is maintaining your balance and your focus with you?
Maintaining the balance and focus with like the rage and all of our parts, or what's the exact question?
With the fine tuning, because with this, it seems like then when you dip back into it, this is where you'll get some of this rage, but it's the old you that's killing off, right? It's the integration, and the way that Pat put it, to fine tune it, is the importance of the thing is really what you're mourning. And it's not like a part of you or it's like the fact that you found money so important, like you're going to mourn that part of you because it was a huge identity for you for a long time.
Exactly. Yes. So I think that this is a great question. This is what I kind of call like getting to the roots of all of it, right? Like, let's get to the root of really what we're mourning or what we're grieving or what we're rageful about. And it's funny because most of the time it's not what we think, right? It's never what we really think. And so I'll give you an example of where my most recent balance has been. So I grew up in a home with two wonderful parents. My father, though, had kind of been in and out of trouble, and he was in and out of my younger childhood. And as a child, we have this like unconditional love for our parents, right? They're like magic, can do no wrong, right? But then there comes this moment when we start to really kind of understand the world in a different way, right? And we start to see like the faults, that as humans, we all have, that our parents have. And I realized in my healing journey, I was like, man, I am like bringing in these relationships with people that like, why? Like, why am I dating the same person over and over? Right. And then I have the same grief cycle. It's like, they didn't see me. They didn't, whatever it was all these things. And then I had this breakthrough moment. And it was actually, again, in that kind of divorce period, I had a lot of epiphanies in that time. But in that, it was, what's actually happening here? Like, I keep going through these cycles where I'm like mourning and grieving, and I'm like, oh, I lost the relationship, I lost this or whatever, stability I thought was there. And I started connecting all of these dots around, when you start to do inner child work or any kind of healing, you go into your parents, right? You go into like little you go into all these things. And it's like I was trying to like save this little part of me that wanted to be seen by her dad, right? And her dad kept coming and kept going. And there was this fear and this like attachment wound of every time I feel like someone's going to leave or I feel like someone's going to run, I start to want to just like cling harder. I want to, attach more. I want to love more. I want to give over what I probably really should in some things. And what was interesting is that for me, I started to realize I am attracting and calling in very similar energies because there's this part of little me that's like, we're going to fix it. We're going to change it. Something's going to be different. And then you start to realize, well, that's actually not how we fix and heal this, right? Like we fix and heal this whole attachment thing in here. This has nothing to do with anybody else. And then we actually think about, what do we want to call in really specifically and intentionally in a partner? And that is someone who is, I love my father dearly. We have a great relationship and we've healed a lot, but someone who is in a different capacity and energetic than what I grew up with him. Right. So, I think that the balance is always finding the root, because the root is rarely what we think it is. It's not, I just must like toxic people, or I just must like this or that. No, like there's something deeper there. And once you start to kind of peel back the layers, right, you're like, oh, then this connects here, then this connects here. So I think the balance is always finding like, what's the baseline? Like, what's the root? What's actually happening here? So you can go through the process, because I think also there's this part of us as a human that like, we really need to know some of these pieces, right? Like we can't just like slap the Band-Aid on it. And when you get to the point of really just not even being able to lie to yourself anymore, you're going to get there anyways. It's like inevitable. It's like, maybe today I don't want to get there, but I know I'm going to be getting there because it's just going to be a thing.
It's a thing until it's not. And this is one of the most interesting things with this Conversations with God, Neil Donald Walsh. I believe somebody's had him on this network recently or is about to. And so congratulations to that host. And one of the things he talks about is this idea that you never know how you're going to feel on any given tomorrow. And so to really like embrace, again, this idea of surprise, this idea of flow, and then to release that, again, it was important until it wasn't. It's a yes and it doesn't have to be this whole detachment thing. And it you can think of this when you were a kid and you wanted something so damn bad for Christmas and you got the damn thing, and then now where is it, right? I mean, and how many times have you gone through those things in your life? And to what you said about the relationships being an indicator of something deeper in you, this is one of the best examples of this universe or this place, this world around you that you could see and sense and whatever, being a mirror to you, in the sense that really it's an indicator right in front of you of what you have the opportunity to heal. Again, Neil Donald Walsh says that you're only in the room to heal the room. The only reason you're in the room is to heal the room, because it's all you, right? And so if it's other unhealed versions of you, that's your opportunity to step in and be that spirit guide, be that person that they go, wow, I met this Brittany Renee chick and she was fascinating. She healed my heart and I love her and she's amazing. And you can be that person for yourself. Again, like you talked about with shadow work and things, and the healing of the little versions of you. I love viewing it that way too, is because that's how I view it. And I'm like, back here talking to little 5-year-old me with dinosaur sheet blankets and stuff and saying, buddy, it's going to be okay. And bringing him to our now and letting him go see the donkeys and all of that. And that safe process is this part of you healing that part. And it's just it's a deep insight level that not a lot of folks have chosen to undertake in the past, but man, that's changing. And I know that you're seeing this with your clients and your work, and you're just seeing some of the most incredible folks step up, especially from positions that you wouldn't have thought of before. We typecast some folks as these lawyers or realtors or whatever, but they're people, they're spiritual beings riding a meat suit like we are. They just happen to be a lawyer, pretending to be a lawyer for a minute, and so there's no sort of, delineation between that. I want to ask you about something called just enough energy. Have you heard about any of this?
No, but I'm here for it.
Yes. So this concept of that it's a manifestation observation, actually. And so it's something I want to talk to you about. It's just enough. Okay. The idea that whenever you get, let's say, a large sum of money in, then a bill will immediately follow it, or a raise in rent, or some car repair that you need that basically lets you break even. Now, a lot of folks will look at this as, oh, great. That's wonderful. I don't. Okay. I get that. Yes, it's better if you had the funds, go ahead and get it, and then have something go to shit. But this is what I mean about the lessons, the grading, the
Mm.
pushing yourself through the tough stuff and getting in excess energy. So this sort of like, because let's say that your business scales up and now you're doing 100 grand a month, but your expenses, the example I heard, your expenses are 9,000, right? Everything is down to the last penny. And so you're not making any money, but your expenses and your income. So there's this not enough energy that some folks I feel are striving for and experience a lot when they finally start to see things with manifestations come in. What are your thoughts on this, or do you have any comments on it?
Yeah, this is a great question. So, I think it's interesting because I think that I've experienced that, right? I've experienced this like, oh, here's the windfall. And then like, oh, well, that's why it came in, right? And right. And I'm with you with like, well, it's great and I'm
Right.
grateful.
You're
And
right.
like,
Hmm.
I would like the surplus. So, I think for me personally, this is what my up level has been, is the expansion past the just enough, because I'd been riding the just enough energy of like, I'm always taken care of. That was my mantra. I'm always taken care of. No matter what, I'm always taken care of. Bills are paid, things are done. But I noticed when I started looking at my own thoughts, I'm like, well, I'm getting by because I am saying it's always taken care of. The bills are paid, this and this. I wasn't stretching it. I wasn't like, the bills are paid and I'm going to go to Bali for a weekend and have surplus of money and bring my kids and whatever. Right. So I think that because so many people in the collective are waking up, that just enough energy is probably getting touched a lot more. Right. Where I then step in, whether it's on your TikTok or your Instagram or in, your personal coaching with me or the events that you come to, it's now let's be bigger, because we, yes, can always be taken care of, but we can also be taken care of in a way that is whatever we want. It can be majestic. It can be amazing. It can be, and always, and right. It's never or. And that was a big thing for me too, was like, I don't just want to get by. I don't just want this. I am in a human experience, yes, in this meat suit, and I want to experience all the things. Like, I just want to have the freedom to experience all the things. And in this planet, one of the freedoms is having financial abundance. And, I think in the spiritual community, a lot of people are like, well, you shouldn't be charging and you shouldn't be whatever. And, I am like, to each their own. Like, if you are happy living that life of just enough, hold the polarity there. I can be happy there, but I choose to like push it further. Like, I want to have all the things because I want to create and give back and change systems. And with that comes the need for more financial abundance. And, even that is a program, I think, that's being broken down right now. People are starting to actually charge what their energetic exchange is. And it stretches people and it illuminates, all of their own stuff that comes up around money.
Such a great answer. And this is something, value exchange is something we are huge on. And this is something I've touched quite a bit on. And so I'm so grateful that you did as well. And not only undervaluing, but I'll take it a step further. A buddy of mine, Dewey Taylor, that just pulled me out of one of the darkest times ever. He runs the Manifestor's Guide. And guys, check that thing out for sure.
Mm.
Again, saved my life, this guy. And one of the things that he talked about was the idea of disempowering your audience. And follow me on this because it was fascinating. He said, what you're doing is you're actually disempowering your audience by feeling that they can't afford you and that they can't afford to participate in you. Now, when you get down to writing scripts, which I'm going to talk to you about here in a minute, then this is the idea of you anthropomorphizing, or you going ahead and making sure that your reality is set up that way because you're already declaring it so, because you're saying, oh, I'm not, number one, worthy of being value exchanged with and having a nice lifestyle and having the things that I want and being able to come to your town and do a live and hang out with you in person and ride go-karts and shit. But also it's one of these things to where now you're actually writing scripts for your entire audience that they will not be able to come up with the means to be able to support you in a value exchange model. Now, when I change this about my own mind, I empower the shit out of my audience. We have tons of value that we offer, and people are free to participate in it, but also at different levels. Like you can engage at many levels. So if you don't want to commit to being a full expansive insider and pay the monthly value exchange ask, then you can rent any of the content for a weekend. Like if you don't want to do the whole, like, but this one and this one look cool, cool. Take those for a ride. We offer many different things for value exchange. What we're also empowering our audiences with is the knowledge of how this stuff actually works. Love Netflix. It's got some interesting things on it. I'm not a big TV person. I don't just like sit in front of the TV. It's just not my thing. I'm a creator, not a consumer, just like you, right? So, but you know, Edward Bernays, whose nephew runs Netflix, is the founder of Propaganda, and so this dude is out here just filling you full of all kinds of shit. There are subtones going on in all of that content. It is loose traps galore. Yet, folks will gladly hand that thing $20 because it'll shut the kids up, rather than going on to Conscious Awakening Network or going over to Brittany Renee. But these are the things that we're shifting. We're showing that because of the illumination of what money really is, which is an energy, and it's a value exchange. It's an energetic exchange you're participating in. So when we talk about lizard turds and we talk about the Klaus Chanel Schwabs of the world, that's what you're giving money to if that's what you'd like. But you don't have to participate with your energy like that. All of us content creators out here have made it very simple for y'all to participate and empower yourselves by doing something like that. And it's not like, let's say if everybody gave $1 per episode, dude, world would be completely different, especially for those contributing. Actually, most of all for them, because now they're investing in something much larger that they know is here to change the world. Even if they won't get off the couch and do it themselves, you are just as big a part of this as us.
Yep. Yes. Yes. Yes.
I'm with you with this shit. This whole idea of like, oh, spirituality and poverty go hand in hand and you can't be virtuous. This is absolute dog shit. And we are the second wave generation that's calling this out. This is a psyop, and it has been successful until now. Like a lot of this shit, all the light got shined up, and we're like, we're taking that too. That's definitely ours too. Because like, you know, jetpacks, right? I mean, and think of this too. Like, think of the developments we could be doing with horticulture, with investing in people's front lawns as gardens and community centers in that way, rather than paying off a national debt to fund wars and pedophilia and drug trafficking, right? Because not $1 of yours goes to infrastructure, by the way. So just so everybody out there knows this, you're sitting there going, yeah, but our taxes go to roads. No, they go off to pay the national debt, which is all Printem's money that's made up anyway. So when you really like look at this stuff, you start to see where your value goes. And, you know, it's one of these things that don't let money devalue your value. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Totally. I get what you're saying.
Even Abraham Hicks, and you're a big fan as well, has said this about the inequality, the value inequality that people are paid for the energy that they give. And it's just staggering. It's mind-blowing. It's just such a throw yourself on the grenade kind of a thing. But that's done. And we're done with all that shit. And I'm pumped, dude. I'm going to take a jetpack over to your place, you know?
Yeah, I love that.
And I'll just leave it for one of your kids. And just fly that one back.
It's great. No, you know, and it's so funny. So my partner is a very successful high level business person. He's very, very intelligent. And one of the biggest things that we will just, even tonight at dinner, we were powwowing on this, you know, it's people are starting to really understand that money is energy, right? And the thing is that when you really grasp the understanding of your worth, and you stop putting the ceiling or the label or the box or the program or the expectation on your answers, and you allow yourself to just get super blunt, raw, authentic, whatever word you want to use, about what you're worth, right? I think we shock ourselves sometimes, right? And, you know, and I've even been experiencing this, and one of my really good friends is on my team right now. And we were just kind of powwowing because we're raising some prices in my business with a lot of the rebrand. And, you know, for me, I don't want to like leave anybody behind. Like it's a part of, I'm so heart-centered. I like love all of the people I've had. I know, you know, even in this up level of what it's going to cost and invest for people to work one-to-one with me is going to look wildly different than it did when I very first started, right? It already does. but I'm constantly like, where do I still make the bridges? Like, where do I still show up? Right. I have a monthly membership that is $22 a month. Right. And it's like that max is not even ever going to hit over 50 probably, because I still want that to be this vault and this place where at least once a month we can powwow. Right. And we can still reach everybody who can be there. Exactly. $20 on Netflix, $20 on the Haven membership, whatever. And then there will be other tiers, right? For people who are starting to climb and scale, because I mean, I have clients who are in $5,000 containers with me right now that didn't even know how they were going to pay for a $111 product a couple of years ago.
Right.
So I'm like, if you want to come start to like really expand into this like juicy, amazing place, like come with me. Like there is enough room on the boat here. Like we are not, no one is needing to stay off. Like if you want to get there, let's work on it. And if you have to come in at the $22 range, great, because you can come up to the 111 range, then you can come up to the 1,000, you can get into the 5,000, and there's all of these, you know, opportunities. And I think that that's where most creators are right now. Is like, we're not going to leave anybody behind. We understand the law of oneness. We understand that you are me, I am you, and like I'm not going to leave any part of me. So, you know, I think it's really, it's an amazing thing to watch yourself grow. And then to start to understand, you know, the energetic exchange of money and what things are worth, because your energy just gets bigger. It also means that things are going to be more of an investment for people to experience you, right? And, you know, my partner being this like businessman CEO, and I'm over here in like etheric things, you know, he is kind of one of those like chameleons. And it's funny because you would see him and you would think he's like a businessman. He probably knows nothing about, you know, spirituality. And like, we'll sit and meditate together. And he just did like a whole Kabbalah weekend. And he's like totally into the energetics. And like his team even knows, like his main team, they talk about energy. So it's really amazing to even witness, you know, like his world that is very like patriarchy. And he's kind of like this chameleon in there trying to also, not trying, he's breaking down a lot of the systems. So I learn from him all the time to stretch more, right? And it's like we even call in, I say that to say, we call in tribe and we call in people who are going to stretch us so we can continue to stretch and then stretch everybody else to be able to be in whatever amazing magical life they want to be in, whatever experience they want to be in. And I would love for us to like reroute the money to have gardens in the front yard and like community gardens, even like, let's start somewhere, right? And there are a lot of people, I will say that, you know, they are starting to do that. They're like getting little plots of land. There's a lot of people who are totally just going off grid at this point. It's happening.
Yeah, wife and I did it 8 years ago, and we love it. You know, we're out here on 12 acres. We absolutely love it because, yes, we're immersed in the technology, and we want for not out here. We don't get delivery service like Chinese food and stuff, but that's fine. We're phenomenal cooks, and we have, you know, surrounded by all this technology and everything, but I have access to nature anytime I want it. You should here look at my feet. See how they're
I'm barefoot too. I would.
And mine are just like torn up and callous because I'm always on grounding and
Grounding.
it's those environments. And Jim Gale's a dear friend, and he runs the Food Forest Abundance Project. He's amazing. He does this thing. That's his deal. He sold some billion-dollar company he had. He was sitting on a yacht and off the coast of Italy, and he was just like, this sucks. And so he sold it all and then started Food Forest Abundance, and it's just changing the world. And it's just incredible to see what these folks like you are doing out here, which is really empowering people. And you and I share the mission here of giving folks back to themselves, but it takes us freeing us from our past selves to be able to help folks with that and to walk through it. Now, I want to talk to you more about this writing scripts idea. Have you thought about this basically like what you think is what is around you, but even taking it a step further to what you think about people is actually how they present themselves to you, and therefore changing your mind about your mother-in-law, let's say, for instance, like I did, then it actually presents a different physical manifestation of human being in front of you. Have you played with this at all?
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
Yes. I love it. I think that this is a level of mastery that I am currently really working in a couple spaces personally. You know, one of the things is, I think when you learn to alchemize the energy, this hits so many laws of the universe. I can't even put this in one. When you learn to alchemize the energy that you are projecting into a space, it will alchemize and return back to you into that similar energy. And I think, we talked a little bit on the last podcast too about Ram Dass, right? He just like puts love into everything. It's like he loves his chair, he loves his cup, he loves his pen. And it's, for me, that's what has been my entry point into this experience is, how can I open up my heart and be more compassionate and be more loving for whatever is happening here, right? Because we know when people are hurting, they hurt. When people are angry or upset or whatever, it's going to project onto everybody else. But the other piece, right, and I think you probably relate to this, is we illuminate this freedom just within our energetics that people can get triggered by. Like,
Yeah.
How are you so happy?
Yes.
How are you, like, what is going on? And it's a confusion that then creates, the anger or the frustration. So I think when we start to become these magicians that infuse like love into these spaces and compassion, and we start to visualize like that person reacting differently and the interactions being different, and we start to really ground into like the feeling of it, it is pretty magical to see how this can shift and move. But this is something that I'm currently really playing with, and I co-parent with two different dads, and there's a lot of dynamics with all these blended families that we have at this point. And so, I'm always saying like, they are some of my biggest teachers. They are some of my biggest stretches into, compassion and love and unconditional love, which I am always wanting to be and exude. And then it's, all the ways and spaces that it's not there will get reflected back to me. Right. So I think that this is a beautiful thing to learn and to play with. And I completely believe that it is a reality. And it's something that I definitely am embarking on in my own space right now.
I love it. So speaking of segues, do you think that the contact phenomena, what occurs there with what they call screen memories, or these suggestions that contactees report, where they will say like, I was going to reach for my phone, but I didn't. And something in my mind said, no, you don't want your phone. And so, no, I didn't take a picture. Or they'll say, something just told me get on this craft and just walk up and that it's safe, but I felt it in my mind. And so I wasn't scared at all. And I just walked onto the craft. Something interesting, I think, is that when you look at the contact phenomena or extraterrestrials, some folks say that that's our next step. And so when also then we talk about writing scripts for people, it sort of mimics itself in the screen memory, apprehension of consciousness in real time ability that they seem to possess. There's sort of a connection there. And really, I would like to consider it more of a sovereign connection to where we're all agreeing that this is taking place and that it's not an apprehension per se. Because let's say also someone in your immediate space, like let's say your mother-in-law, just throwing that out there as an example, that they do want to be in your space, but also perhaps they don't know how to come at you at the right energy or with the right energy. So even in your immediate vicinity or any interaction you have with them, they're able to level up with you a bit because you're sending them their ability to do so in the same way that you wouldn't be combative with the extraterrestrial that was looking forward to ushering you on for whatever reason, and we can absolutely talk about that. But in the same way that there'd be sort of a passivity that's relayed to you telepathically almost, to where you're like, yeah, I don't want to be an asshole. I'm not trying to reach for the gun that's right here. People have said this about that stuff. So it's an interesting almost like foreshadowing into perhaps what we have to look forward to, which is, in my mind, like a superpower.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, and I think telepathy is getting played with more and more in the collective anyways right now. I'm it's normal for me to like think about someone and then
Yeah.
text comes in, phone call, whatever it is. And it's funny because now it's, I even have friends who aren't necessarily conscious. I mean, we're all conscious, right? They're not tuned in, tapped in quite yet, but they'll send me a message or I'll send them a message and they'll be like, oh my God, I was just thinking about you. And
Yeah.
and I'm like, of course you were, right?
Yeah.
So I do think, we're playing in a really fun and exciting realm of energy. And I don't know what we're preparing for, but if we have ships drop down, I'm totally here and ready. I'm like, bring me my Arcturian family. I got you. I'll get
Ooh,
on the ship.
let's talk about this. Let's do this. Okay. So, bunch of UFO sightings going on lately. A bunch of lights in the sky. We don't know if they're craft. We don't know what they are. But it seems to be a flap of sorts. Or do you feel that it's just more people got phones and cameras and more people are looking? It's an interesting thing. We seem to be seeing more craft in the sky lately. What are your thoughts?
I feel like there's so many answers that I want to say to this.
You could say them all.
Yes. So one answer would be yes, obviously our technology is different, right? We all have phones pretty much all the time. The other thing is my brain automatically goes into like Project Bluebeam, right? And I'm like, now, are these like being put out? Are these actually, and I think here's my answer. I think it's a blend. I think it's a blend of, I have communicated with many, whatever we want to call them, galactic extraterrestrial beings. I know that they are present. And I know that we have ulterior programs that are trying to like run. And so I think it's a little of both. And I think that I'm really looking for, coming back into our full circle of these conversations, looking for the root of why we're being told, look at the UFOs. This is what, it's like, I saw someone's TikTok and I was literally laughing out loud. She's like, well, we just got told that aliens are here and no one cares because we're all desensitized and it's just a typical Wednesday at 2:00 and no one, I was like, this is so true. But we've been talking about this forever, right? Like multiple government officials over the years have come forward talking about extraterrestrials, aliens, UFOs, whatever we want to say. It's not new, and I think those of us who are pretty tapped in and awakened, like we know this isn't new. We know that they've been here, but we also know like there's an agenda somewhere. And so that's where my mind is like, what are you trying to prep us for? Right? Like we got the whole, like, if there was a pandemic, this is what would happen. Cue like 60 days later, pandemic.
Hey, what are the odds? A real world situation going on 9/11 as well for the exact same scenario that was being played out in real world, which was interesting. And the timing on that is just fascinating. When it really comes down to it, the universe is amazing. It's an interesting time that we find ourselves in, and especially with these craft and things like that. So Project Bluebeam is one of these things that we've talked quite a bit about, and I love it. It's one of my favorite topics. The manifesto that Sir Jay Manast wrote. Have you ever read it? It's like a long. It's on the internet. I've bookmarked it actually, just so that I can have it. And it's just a fascinating read through because it's one of the most. It's my favorite conspiracy theory, just in terms of batshit crazy and how many things they like cram into one damn thing.
I think I have read this.
I love it. The archaeological discoveries from earthquakes that kick the whole thing off, that show an ancient civilization that was completely connected with a one world religion and all of that. And then just so happens, probably same day, with the way the news cycle is, then Super Jesus pops up in the sky via some 7D sky to skull technology holograms type of a thing, which they've had since the 50s. There's all these videos out with 7D technology type things and things in public spaces that were being rolled out in Japan in 2007. So it's very happening. And then, but if you are over in Japan, you're going to see Buddha, not Jesus. And then if you're somewhere else, you're going to see Krishna. And then, so your God is going to pop up via a hologram. And then aliens are going to come in. And then Super Jesus is going to battle this. And then they're all going to turn into one thing. And it's this huge, amazing, elaborate deal that I love. I really hope, like, if we're gonna do some sort of psyop or something, I'm down for a little laser light show. I went and saw Pink Floyd's laser light show on mushrooms like 20 years ago, and I could see the same thing happening because I would just blare some Pink Floyd, and watch this shit go down out here.
Well, and it's funny because that's why I think I was laughing at this TikTok because I'm like, we like, I just want to say we're going to say like, those people, whatever, government officials,
Lizard turn.
we see you, like we see you, and more of us see you now than we've ever seen. So it's like, if we're going to enact this Project Bluebeam, like there's going to be so many of us that are just like, yeah, turning on music and we're like, all right, here's the show.
Yep.
Let's watch what's happening.
Let's going down. Let's do it. Take the day off. Let's get the kids out of school. Let's hang out and watch this shit. And that's hopefully though, when the real Galactic Federation will come in and just be like, okay, let's just chill out here. And it may be one of these things. It's sort of, I think that time is very, very interesting in the way that time works. and the way that our impact on what we experience from any point of it works. And so the idea that we're getting glimpses of things now sort of make me feel like what we're experiencing now, we implanted Roswell when it happened from this space. Like we
Mm,
implanted all the whistleblowers, air quotes, along the way, because I don't truly feel in my heart of hearts that anything is leaked. I feel like everything is very deliberately put out at exactly the right time, but it's
it is.
couched in this like, oh, it's leaked and there's a whistleblower. That dude is back there hanging out with all those guys. You know what I mean? They're the same lizard turd, just on a different hand of the puppet. That's all it is. And it's fascinating whenever you start to see this, that you maybe planted this a long time ago so that your mom would, I don't know, meet with somebody to have you. So then, but the UFO thread is kind of woven throughout all of this because you knew that we would be in our power and in this moment that you and I would not be like toddlers right now and be able to like do some really dope shit and to really, cook our own popcorn to go out and watch Project Bluebeam when it goes down.
Right.
It feels like also that, I mean, our past selves would have wanted some really, really dope theatrics. Like we've been prepared with our entire lives. I'm a comic book nerd. Like I love animation and things like that. Like I'm ready to see some really dope shit. The universe has prepared me for that. So I'm ready for it in my experience. What about
Oh, I am, it's funny because I have been like total girly girl in this experience, really. Like I was, growing up in dance. I grew up in pageantry. I've been like the stage theater kid. I was the DJ. Like I've just always been all about the experience, right? Yeah, all about it.
Oh,
And for me, it was like the one series that I think people get shocked that I just geek out on and love are the Marvel series. And it's funny because when I do energetic field work, like there are so many similarities specifically with Doctor Strange that come up in the like energetic fields. And I've had, clients and friends that have had dreams of us and they're like, we were in this like Avenger movie and you were in these like tall boots and we were like battling these like galactic things. And I'm like, yeah, it's great. I love it. Like, I'm here for this. Like,
bring it.
give me the suit, give me the shield. Like, I'm ready. But I agree. I think I'm just ready for whatever's like coming. I'm like, okay, like we've been doing a lot of talking. Like, I'd like to see what's happening. And, I had a very interesting vision in 2020 during the whole lockdown thing. I was doing a whole lot of tapping into teams and starting to really like play more in like energetic fields and Akashic records during that time. And I had two Arcturian beings come to me and they're like, we need to share with you an experience that you may be a part of. And I'm like, okay, awesome, cool. And so I sit down, I like create my little circle, my space, and they showed me that I was in the grocery store and like the power just like went out. And like everyone kind of looked around and then there was just panic. Like everyone started freaking out. They were like running out of the store. And I was like in the grocery with my little like cart in my arm. And I'm like looking around and I'm super calm. And I just walk out of the store. I like get in my car. I'm calm. There's like chaos everywhere. Go back to my apartment, grabbed a couple like crystals and all these like clearing tools, and then came out. And I was literally like pulling people out of like my apartment complex, like bringing them out into like circle and just sitting there and like doing work with them and like praying and doing energy work. And I was like, everything's okay. And there were like all the sky looked like it was ripped open and there was like all this stuff happening. And they were like, we need you to know that when the chaos happens, you are a part of the calm. And so it's very important for you to know, like, you're going to know exactly what you need to do. And there will be assistance and there will be help, but you need to just remember in that moment that you are the calm. And we needed you to like see like a scenario. And then they were done and they left and they like closed out the space. And I was just like, okay.
What?
Right. That was like 2020. And I'm like, when's it happening?
There's so many questions. You know what I'm going to ask. Did you take this further? Have you gotten any other premonition? Have you asked more about this? Have you asked any other guides? Or are you like, guys, these Arcturians came to me. What do you Pleiadians think about this? Get a second opinion.
Yes. So I had a few different dreams. Arcturians, it's like it's one of my home, spaces. So I have a lot of Arcturian contact. one of the things that kept coming through in my dream space after this was, it was just like different scenarios, right? It was like, I was at a baseball game and one of them with my kids. And it's just like, it's like the interesting piece for me that I keep seeing is that nothing actually happens. You know, it's not like a bomb is dropped and people are freaking out. It's just like the sky gets really dark and then everyone starts to just bug out and they're like freaking out and we have to go home. And I'm in this like little bubble of just like, everything's okay. We're just going to bring the peace. Right. You know, I have called forth to those couple beings that brought that to me and asked, you know, is there anything else I need to know? Like, is there a timing? And they're like, you know, the timing is something we cannot give because the timelines are constantly moving and collapsing and shifting. And there's nothing else you need to know. Like that was just the code. You just needed that code that you are the calm within the chaos. You know, and that's pretty much been it. So I've just kind of been on this, like, I'll tap into it sometimes. Like, do I need to like be ready? Is there something, you know, and they're just like, you'll know, it's fine.
What do you think it means? I know that you're the calm within the chaos, but it obviously is foretelling an event. And even though the sky goes dark, and I'm not asking you to Nostradamus this thing for us, but if you could Renee Stradamus this thing for us.
You know, so the event, right? We've heard about the event, the flash, the whatever we want to call it. I became, far before this download channel came through, I was really into researching this whole event, researching the flash. And there was a quantum hypnosis therapist, Allison Coe. I don't know if you've ever listened to her, but she started realizing that all of her clients were talking about the same thing. They were all talking about the event. So she started asking her clients, do you mind if I start to share, you know, some of these stories and interactions? So I would like get into her YouTube for hours and just listen to these client sessions about the event. And I was like super geared up about it. I was like, this is going to be amazing. This is going to be so cool. Like, cause for me, I'm like, beam me up, right? Like I'm ready for us to have some sort of co-creative space at this point. And I think that now, you know, years down the line, after hearing a lot of different people talk about this, I think that the solar flares that are happening right now and all of the energy that is coming from the sun, these, you know, big waves, whether it's on the Schumann resonance or sunspots or solar flares or CMEs or whatever it is, I feel like they are giving an opportunity for this constant cellular up level, this constant activation, this constant like cleanup, right? Process. I don't know if we as a collective planet are necessarily ready for the event. And I don't think that anyone's ever going to fully be ready, right? That's just not how things work. And I still think we have some more of the conscious beings coming online to hold down that calm energy when whatever is going to happen will happen. And I think it's kind of getting like slowly, I shouldn't say slowly, a lot is happening right now with the solar activity, but I think we're kind of getting like mini flashes happening instead of this one big thing. And I feel like every time I try to sit in that and I'm like, what's going to happen? Like, are we going to have an event? Is this going to be, you know, whatever? And it's like, when I see the timelines, it looks like a clock and it's just all these different timelines and it's just constantly shifting. It's like everything is just moving so quickly right now that there isn't really an answer, you know? And I think it's why in the awakening process, all of us are meeting ourselves on such deep levels. Because one of the things that I heard, which this tripped me out, and at the same time, I was like, this is so cool to think about. One of the transgressions that I listened to was about this soul who is a human in the human experience, but at nighttime in their astrals, they are assisting and holding up the hologram around the planet. And they said that the awakening and the frequency that the planet is reaching right now is causing tears in the hologram. It's causing like all of these glitches basically in this matrix that we are in, and that they are here in their like astral realm to assist in sewing up these tears pretty much within like the hologram. And so then the practitioner was like, well, what happens if you don't do that? Like, what happens if these tears just keep happening? And they said, well, that can't happen yet because we're not ready as a planet. And if it did, if the hologram basically shut down or if everything just collapsed, we would be in the void. And many people have been in the void, right? And they understand that void space. They understand their potential. They understand their power to create, but there aren't enough of them yet. So what will have to happen is that we have to have enough of us that are able to be in a void, whatever that looks like, right? When I say void, I see like this black spacey energy, and know we can create together, especially with multiple people creating whatever that might be, right? What are we going to create in this space? So I think that, there's so many different layers to this answer. And I think there isn't an answer yet. Like, I think we are creating, right? We're creating so much right now that it's like, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to have an event. I don't know what's going to happen.
You know what trips
In a
me up
ride.
so much about this? First of all, everything you said, I'm just like glued to. Your perspective on this, your insights, the way that you're relaying it is just fascinating. And one of the things I'm thinking on this is, when you said you'll know what to do, and then you're talking about the void. My connection to the void is in a psychedelic experience in DMT, and it's terrifying in a way because you realize that this is all a game at a very real fucking level, that none of this exists, and that you actually made all of this up to entertain yourself to not go crazy. And it's terrifying. It's one of the most terrifying feelings you can ever experience. Especially, I've heard another friend of mine, Whitney Fox, talk about experience her time in the void, and it was even more terrifying. Talking about how she knew that her family, her children, all of it, none of it was real, and that it was just something she made up in her mind. And so it can get very, very heavy. What tripped me out when you started talking about it in this way was, let's say that this is what happens, and that all of this goes to a black void where we, though, are very powerful as a creator would be, not even necessarily in their full commitment of being like a god, let's say, but their ability to at least create with the word, like we know, and we have a reference for that in our 3D here with the God created the word, said, let there be light. He created everything with the word. So I can picture all of us blipping out or this whole thing happening, there being a bit of a time, and then me just sort of going, Brittany, are you here? And you're like, yeah, I'm here. And then we just go like, what do you guys want to do? Well, we need to see something. And so what's the first thing you do? Well, let there be light. And then what happens? And then there's light. And then maybe you're the one that created all this damn thing and that the book's about. And that you gave yourself an instruction manual for when you jump back in the void to speak creation back into existence.
I love it. Yeah.
It's trippy I don't know how to feel about it, to be honest with you, because it's terrifying in a sense, but it's also empowering in the most incredible sense. But then it's also like I feel a programmed trigger to say that that's hubris, that we're the ones doing this. You know what I mean? But then at another level, I'm like, you're absolutely fucking doing this, and you know that. I've shook the presence. I kind of know at deep levels what's going on here, but I sort of put these automatic blinders on myself for um, I guess to not feign ignorance, but to really not to like ruin the end of the movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because my wife and I'll do this. I'll get ahead. I'm like, he did it, and she's like, damn it, and it's right. It's like the weirdest twists and all this stuff. I'm like, they wouldn't have done this. They added this look, and they wouldn't have done that if it wasn't important. Blah blah blah. And so I like right at the first scene. I'm just like, ah. And I like though where you're at with this. I think it's a whimsical thought. It's honestly, it still hyphens off to the revelation thing of like the Armageddon, and this idea of that we made the right choice and others didn't, so we get to go somewhere and they don't. I was on the receiving end of that when my mom still thinks hell's a thing and tells me about it. And so it's this interesting, like, I don't want to put that on somebody else. I don't want to be like, well, we made the right choice and fuck off. Like, I don't because like you, I don't want to leave anyone behind, right?
Right.
Do you think that that's, I mean, I know I ask everybody this because I'm just so curious, because this is like probably the biggest topic for any of us that we can relate to beyond like, we can relate to anything, but it's one of the most interesting things when we all get together. I say we all, and we
Yeah.
start talking about our interpretations of what this split will look like. And for me, it's just this interesting, I still kind of harping it off to this idea of like, well, we did the right thing and you didn't. And I think though that that's part of the game, that's part of our perception in the game, and then it's not the truth of it. And I don't think anybody gets left behind.
I don't think they do either. And 2020 was just such an interesting year for me in my connection to a lot of like the teams that I talk to, and I channel, whatever you want to put this as, right? One of the pieces for me that I saw often when I would just kind of tap into, what's coming, what's happening, I saw a lot of ships, and they were massive, right? And a lot of what I was doing in this space was like, I had like a little checkboard, and I, had this interesting like galactic-y kind of outfit on, right? And the ships all had pods inside of them, and the door was open, and people were basically just kind of coming in when they were ready, and they were sitting in front of these like kind of very highly technology screens, right? Getting really caught up on what was happening. And there were people who were helping and assisting people like really ground into like, this is the truth, right? This is what we've been trying, like, here's the red pill, blue pill, like, right? So I've seen a lot of that kind of interesting integrative process too.
Yes.
So, I think in part the split is seen and felt so many ways, because we have so much within us so deeply programmed to be separate, even if we don't want to be, right? It's like, well, I'm awake and you're asleep, or, whatever it might be. But the truth of it is, I don't think anybody's getting left behind either. I think that some people are going to have a much easier time integrating. And I think other people are going to, like you said earlier, like have their skin feel like it's ripping off, right? And like have like what they feel like might be a mental breakdown. So it's, I think no matter how that actually happens, like whether it's ships or we actually just have all kinds of crazy disclosure, pieces actually come through, I don't necessarily think people are left behind. I just think some people are going to have a much easier integration than others. And part of, I think, our service, is to help those people who are not going to have as easy of a time, be like, I got you. It's okay.
I love this so much, because the idea that my mom is going to be sitting, or like I see her from across the pod, and you and I are in our galactic outfits, right, hanging out, and I'm like, oh shit, there's my mom. Hang on, I got you, mom. It's going to be okay. Yeah. No. Hell's not a thing. No. Stop at the you were right. It's not important anymore. But let's just watch this video together, and hang out, and everybody just chill. And it sort of feels like this soul integration that's talked about by Dr. Michael Newton in like Journey of Souls or any of that, where he talks about this viewing area where you're shown sort of a past life memory of yourself, and you integrate all those, or your life that you just lived. But in this way, I dig this even more, and I'm going to ask you this question now. Do you feel like you're going to die in this life? I don't
No,
either. What the fuck is going on with this? I've been talking about this recently. Go ahead.
it's so funny. I love that we're talking about this, because there's only a couple people I've talked about this with. So, it's funny. I have had this just overwhelming feeling like I'm not going to die in this lifetime. And that also, it's like the game that we're in is going, like, I'm going to see the end of the game.
Yes.
And so,
yes.
And, even like all of the pieces for me, like, in my human experience, I have a lot of things that like shouldn't and don't in society like make sense, but they're working.
Yes.
And even like my partner and I have a pretty big age gap. We have a 25-year age gap. And even with him, like I've had moments where I'm like, oh, like, well, when we get older, like, and then I'm like, no, like that's not happening. Like we're not dying in this life. Like that's not what's happening. Like we're transcending into soul level aspects or pieces. And even deeper to that, there's technologies that are already here that are not in the masses, right? Medical bed technologies, crystal healing technologies, whatever, Tesla technologies, like whatever we want to talk about. But there's so many things and so many ways I think that this feeling is going to somehow manifest, that it's like whether we figure out how to elongate into like maybe it isn't happening, until we're like 150, but we figure out how to get there, right? I feel like we're just starting to really attune as a collective conscious network to this human experience is just an experience, but we're going to probably witness the experience being like, all right, we're turning this off now. Now it's time to
Yeah.
really see what's happening.
Not a, okay, you went through it and get recycled back here in a new birth. It's that, okay, the game's over and it's over for everyone in a very different way than anyone's ever articulated to us before. Now, I'm not necessarily convinced, number one, that we're all in the same place and that consensus reality is a thing, so that all of this could be a damn game and no one's here but you, like the solipsism idea, to
Yeah.
where really there's no history at all. It's a bunch of stories that you were given in place so that you build a narrative around this, sort of a choose your own adventure kind of a thing. And so even in that respect, like I choose this. I choose to be here with a bunch of dope galactic people that are just crushing it, and we get to have amazing conversations and do all of these incredibly cool things and wake up other parts of ourselves that are asleep as well that agreed to be. And so whenever you talk about that no one is going to be left behind, this is something, man, you think about this as well, you know, because you can get caught up in the game like anybody else. You could say, you know, I don't want to see like my mom, for instance, who believes in hell's a thing, and then for her to be scared when this happens and all of that. And so you do your best to sort of buffer those emotions within yourself because you know that it's just you, right, at a level. So none of you is getting left behind because there's no one to leave behind because it's all you. And so even people like your lizard turds and like the people that are doing these things that we're told are going on, which again I've not experienced them, so I can't say that they are not. I'm told that they are, so that's what I'm told. But even that is facilitating an energy here, and even that seems to have an anchoring benefit because then it allows us in the equal and opposite that we're told exists ascend even higher, which is sort of like their sacrifice, right? They're like, hey, we're going to jump way down into root chakra so we can push you way up there and it's going to connect. This is the Tower of Babel idea, to where there's this like collapse around, but that collapse around is fueling like jumping on a trampoline, you know, the double jump thing, right? They double jump you so you can go twice as high. And that's what it feels like this is. So why would they be punished for playing the role that they played in anchoring the energy for all of us to go up? It's like, yeah, I'll stay behind so you guys can go, but then we whiplash them up with us. You know, it's a co-collective creative thing. And it's like this idea of you gotta get up to get down, like that song, right? You know, it's you got some that go this way and some that go the other. And this is really what this split or this divide is. But again, it's a collective. I don't see a bad guy here in my mind. So I don't see like an enemy. I see an adversary, which is very different. It's not out to kill you. It's out to inspire, motivate, and challenge you. That's a very different definition than what we've been given. I just dig talking to you. So, you know, it's like,
We've gone so many places.
God, I know. You want to go some more?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, we still got some time here. This is great. Okay, so superpowers in our time. This is another one about not dying in our time. We've talked about Avengers and stuff like this, and this is something to where like you've touched on telepathy here, and I knew you were going to say that, by the way. But with this as well, I'm feeling like we're going to see people like fly and like not be bound by the limitations that we were told, which is though that it's just in movies, because we're seeing a lot of things that are just in movies happen all around us. So I feel that limitation, because that's all it is, right? In my mind, it's just we've been told, and so therefore we believe it. Superpowers in our time. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this could go so many different ways. You know, I think more people now, you know, let's talk about like health, right? Like more people now are starting to realize that you can literally heal your body with your belief system, right? On top of all the other things you should be doing already to eat healthy and all that. But, you know, like Joe Dispenza, I like love what he's doing with people. I'm like, this is incredible. Wim Hof, right? Breath work, like bringing breath into your body, healing your body. So I think even as simple as that, right? And that's not even just simple. Our bodies are crazy, crazy things that we're in. But to heal your body, I mean, I have, you know, a friend's mom who healed leukemia completely naturally with this naturopath doctor, with energetics, with mind work, with food, right? So I think we're breaking out of like big pharma type of systems, right? And we're regaining what is, I think, a natural superpower of like healing our bodies, right? And then simultaneously, I think we have a lot more telepathy, yes, happening on the planet. And on top of that, you know, I think that there is a lot of dormant activation, there's a lot of things that are lying dormant that need to be activated within ourselves, within our DNA, within our psyche, our conscious, unconscious, subconscious, superconscious mind, for us to really remember what we're capable of. Because if we all do agree, whether you say it's a matrix or it's a hologram or it's a game or whatever, every game has an up level. It has like that secret code, right? That like unlocks all these things. So I think one of the codes that's being really broken is really within our consciousness right now. And so I think we're going to be able to see all kinds of really exciting things, you know? And I think the first level, which is kind of what we talked about earlier, is this alchemy within even relationships, right? Like if you can actually alchemize an energetic between you and another person, that's magic, right? If you can alchemize to heal parts of you from an inner child, right? And your dinosaur sheets, or for me, you know, and I'm like making spells in the backyard, right? If you can alchemize those like little versions of you, bringing them into this here and now, that's magic. And we already have so much of that happening that I'm like, we're already ready for like the next level. So who's unlocking it, right? And there's one of the reasons I love TikTok, right, is there's all kinds of stuff on there. There's some stuff that's totally obscene, but then there's some stuff that really like does grab me sometimes, because there are channelers who are very obviously channeling all sorts of beings, right? And they'll talk about, you know, like there are beings that are going to start unlocking parts of their dormant DNA to be able to move objects, to be able to manipulate weather, to be able to fly, to be able to do all of this. And I mean, I have a friend of mine who she's like a white witch and she manipulates weather all the time. Like she literally will message me and we'll like go back and forth about it. And there was even, you know, I was in the Starbucks drive-thru with my kids at before this hockey practice, and this door was like open at Starbucks. And I was like sitting there and I was like, I bet I could close that door. Like, I bet I could like pull it with my energy. Cause I had just done like all this session work that day. I was on fire. Like my energy was so in tune. And my kids are in the back seat. And I was like, hey, look at that door that's open. And they were like, yeah. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like pulling everything I have like in my energetics to pull this door, and the door shut. And my son was in the back seat and he was like, oh my God, did you just do that? It's like, well, either the wind planned at the perfect time or yes, but either way, I'm going to take that as a win. And so it's like, you know, there's so many moments where I think when your belief aligns with your energy and it aligns with all of the like neuro pathways that you're starting to unlock, I think pure magic will start happening. And the more we see it, right? Because there's so many people who are like, I have to see it to believe it, right? But then it's like, well, teach me how to do that because I want to know. I want to know how to do that. So I do. I think we're going to have some really amazing things starting to happen. And I think, again, you know, this agenda of like, whatever, we have aliens here, like no surprise, right? People are like, next, like we already know this, you know. I'm like, what are you trying to steer us from? Like what's already maybe happening that we haven't even seen yet, right? Whether it's, you know, hasn't made its way to the socials or anything like that. So I do think we have a lot coming.
That would be the biggest letdown ever, is for it to be like an actual, oh no, that we're doing like another Holocaust. And like they actually are doing this horrible fucking thing where they, you know, go around and pick everybody up, but they use aliens as a distraction. Now, I don't feel that that's what's occurring. And so therefore, that's not what's being manifested. But there are some folks out there that do see these as operations, not psychological operations. And they can't detach and step back to the root, which is what you talked about. It's never about the thing, right? And so it's beautiful for you to ask, and this is one of the best questions ever. What are you really talking about here? Whenever you see something like that, it's not, oh, face value, yeah, got it. Government's, oh, really? Oh, okay, wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much. You've been lying to us forever. Now, though, we're going to trust you when you tell us the truth because you're giving it to us because we've just waited so long. And we're just going to, anything you tell us, we're just going to run with and say thank you. The part that pinged me was in it whenever Grosh or whatever his guy's name is, whenever he was talking about and answered in the affirmative when he was asked, do you think that they're a threat to national security? And of course, he's like, yes. And so that's the part when I'm like, got it. Here's what they are. And this whole disclosure movement in my mind, and that's how I've been asking people on the show, is disclosure important to you? And my answer for it honestly is no. And the reason is because I don't listen to it anyway. So I don't care what they're saying. So it's a tree falling in the woods as far as I'm concerned. I'm not in that world, so I'm not experiencing that. But with that comes a lot of folks that are like, yeah, but it's opening like a bunch of people's eyes. And so in that way, I absolutely subscribe to this. Sure. I mean, that's fine. But more to it would be like, just stop listening to them. You know, whenever something does happen to this effect, they're like, oh my God, the government's saying it. It's like, yeah, but look what they're saying. They're parading a bunch of military people in front of you and telling you how it's a threat and how you should feel that it's a threat as well. And therefore, you will manifest that and you will let this occur. And then, whenever it does occur because you allowed it, then you're going to look to them for the answers. And it's this Hegelian dialect, right? This problem, reaction, solution. And it's, again, one of these things, it's so illuminated. And there's all these memes running around right now within the people who've been looking at this longer and who've been taking it seriously and asking questions longer. I'm not going to say ufologist or whatever,
Yeah.
but all of us now are sitting there going, bullshit, you know, yeah, oh, aliens are real. The whole world, oh my God, aliens are real. And all conspiracy theorists right now are going, no, bullshit, they're lying to you. But
Mhm.
why? And that's the real question, right? It's like, we know NASA's full of shit, but why? Like, that's the kind of stuff that steers me in the other direction of asking those kinds of questions. But again, I find that whenever they're couching it with a bunch of military people and they're saying that it's a national threat, that's the next step for them. And so they're going to give you a light show. And that's what I feel is going to happen. And I'm pumped for it. We got the popcorn ready. I got a couple doobies rolled. We're very excited for this occasion. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And I'm like, and it's so interesting because it's similar, it's the similar story I've heard, here and across all different social media channels with people that, I'm close with who are also channelers, intuitives. It's like, I think the real beings, I think unfortunately are going to be like, here we go, right? Like, we were trying to let you do this on your own, but we're going to step in now because.
And that's the thing. Maybe they know that they, the lizard turds, because again, I don't see a bad guy here. So I see this all as a Tower of Babel. Like, they're, again, anchoring that light and being so repulsive so that it scares everybody out of listening to them at all forever. And from that, you get a lot of truth. You get a lot of openness and you get a lot of community out here. And that's what's so much more appealing. And so in my mind, they're like the snarling dogs at the back of the pack that are just sweeping up the stragglers, and they're scaring the shit out of stragglers because we're all going that way. And you and I are moving that way, and we're helping folks along the way, and that's great. But there are some people at the back there that are anchoring it, and that's wonderful. But the dogs, the lizard turds, the ones that we feel are doing it to us, though I don't phrase it that way, and thus the air quotes, then that is where folks are running from, and that's fine. Those are the people who will sit down in front of the screens and say, hey, the dogs weren't going to hurt you. They were just doing that because you couldn't see we were going that way. Oh, okay, I got it. What's the next game? I want to know what you think is outside of this. Like, what do you think the hologram is keeping us from seeing?
Oh,
Feel free to speculate wildly, by the way. We don't plan.
yeah.
Absolutely nuts.
So, when I was sharing that I was listening to the hypnosis session where they were kind of talking about, like, we're holding up this hologram, right? Like, my mind is like visualizing this like screen of things, and I'm like,
Yeah.
totally in it. But when I think about that, for instance, and I'm like, well, what happens if the hologram just shuts down, if it rips open, right? And I think about Marvel movies where like the skies, ripping open. And to me, it's like, I always see the galaxies. Like, I see all of the amazingness that's in the galaxies, right? And what I think is even closer than what we realize, right? Like, I totally believe we have ships that are hidden in plain sight. I think that there are a lot of beings here that have a human meat suit look, but they're not. I think there's just bigger awareness is what it feels like. And I don't know exactly what the texture of it looks like, but to me, it's like, I get excited thinking about like, what would happen if we just flipped the switch, right? It's like, for me, there's this almost like my womb is like activated talking about it. It's this like nostalgia feeling of like, I get to go see like my homies, right? I get to see like my star family, my guides. Like, there are, people. One of the things that I thought was really interesting is that one of those sessions talked about when the event happens, you're greeted by your star family or soul family, and also like actual family that you had that had passed, right? That are there. And I was so like this warm feeling of, my mom's father, he's like a guide to me now, but he was just such an anchor in the family. And I'm like, to see him and just be able to like hug him would just like, it lights me up. I'm like, that would just make my heart so happy. So I think that what I see is just a lot of, galactic celestial energy, but I do see a lot of pockets of darkness, and pockets of kind of voidy kind of energy. And I think that a lot of people, even just to see a rip in the sky and see a little bit of what I see, would probably be like, I don't know what that is, going back to bed or going to get a drink, whatever it is, right? Yeah, but that's what I see when I think about, what would it look like if this just kind of shut down? Like, I think a lot of this planet is very illusionary. And even though, like, if I jump off a building, I die, right? Quote unquote. I think there's so much untapped energy at this point, and we're getting rapidly into tapping into a lot of things. So yeah, that's what I think.
Damn. I want to run a TikTok video by you here, and so I'm going to share screen for the audience here as we do this. I don't think we're going to do audio, and that's okay. There's probably no audio to it, but if you can see this okay, this is the video I want to show you because this proposed a fascinating theory on this world. And just from the, I guess, thumbnail here, if I scroll over it, I'm going to give you some obstacles, but this is sort of an idea that I've been playing around. A lot of people have been playing around with, but this has been on my mind lately. Whenever I couple it with the NASA's full of shit and the not telling us the truth about what's going on and all that kind of stuff, I think about alternate models for this place, for this reality. And yes, the holographic model in a sense is awesome. And I love that idea of it being way more dimensional and all of those kind of things. I will also though bring in kind of Jason Bashir's work with the archaics and talking about these cycles that come through here, where we have found buildings like sunk in the ground to where it looks like the ground turned to quicksand and then just sank all the buildings. Not necessarily that maybe mud was flowed over, but there is evidence of this all over the place. And then you have things like the ancient ruins and things like that, that maybe this is just sort of a speed dating thing to where when the awakening starts to happen, they flood this place and wipe the slate clean. Now, you can think of this in many different ways, but whenever you talk about this idea, I'm going to play the video here in a second, but whenever you talk about this idea of that this is the structure of us and that, yes, maybe the game is over in a sense, perhaps you do have to die here for that to be the way. I don't feel that that's going to be our experience, and this is why I asked you that. I don't think that this reset is what they're doing. I think that they've flushed the thing a bunch until they came up with this batch, and this was the correct combination to unlock the lock. Now, here's the lock in question for this reality, and as he's going through this here, you can see what's occurring. Let's see if I can make this a little bigger for you. You can see what's occurring here is that there's basically a little model. There we are. There's a little model that he has submerged in an entire tank here. And this is the thing to keep note of. When we talk about the waters above, when he made the skies above to establish the fountains of the deep, right? We talk about the firmament, shoal, and all these other type of ancient examples of like a sphere or a tree with a dome over the top. This includes an entire working model of fluid dynamics within this as well, where it'll show you the interpretation of basically what a dry inner world would look like. And then whenever the firmament is popped out of the top here, we have Genesis 7:11 being written in the bottom here. In the 600 year of Noah's life, in the second month, in the seventh day of the seventh month, at the same day, were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. Now, folks have taken a look at some of these, what they call meteor crater impacts as well, and they've compared them side by side with geysers. And they're actually identical with geysers, not meteor impacts, which would then call into question that there's a space at all, because they had to say, no, a big rock fell here from space, not this is a thing that opens every now and then and kills us all. And so it's one of these ideas, again, whenever you talk about this and take it from biblical scripture, that from this model being made and it vacating, and then, then the waters recede, right? What they do is then they plug the finger over the top of the system. Now you can see this as well as if our night sky is sort of a suspended animation in liquid
Mhm.
above us. This would explain how for thousands of years, even though we're moving at 66,000 miles an hour, which is not satanic at all, and we're doing all of these things, that the stars have stayed in the exact same positions for thousands of years. And so again, there's sort of this idea that the moon is right here and that, Saturn is right over here. And the
Right.
idea is that when you get out of this, it's actually very, very close. And here's a great example right here of what the guy's talking about. So what do you think about this being like an experiment, a science experiment of sorts, and that there's a physicality to this? It's definitely not what we're being told through the never a straight answer. But what do you think about this sort of idea and that there's resets and things like that?
Oh, I definitely agree. I think there's resets. I mean, like you said, there's proof, right? All over the place. What's interesting is I'm looking at this diagram here is, one of my gifts is working within people's energetic field. And what's interesting is that when I see energetic fields, it looks like this. I see a
Really?
being and I see a casing that's like a dome, like a half dome on top of their energy field.
Like an aura? But I mean, beyond the aura?
So like you look at the little play symbol, like that's where I would see you,
Right.
right? Your light body, your energy. And then around you, this yellow ring is like the cap of your energetic field.
Wow.
So
Never
in that is where we do a lot of alchemy and work and like how I am shown, I should say, people's energetic fields. And so what's interesting is like I'm seeing this and I'm like, huh.
as above, so below.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
It's just interesting as all get out. And I love stuff like this. And I'm actually going to, while we're talking here, going to pull up a couple more of those because that's just a fascinating idea. This idea, and I'm not, a flat earther per se, but I will absolutely talk about this because I am very much a critical thinker. And so when I'm told, no, nothing else is going on and that's dumb if you look at it, that's all I want to look at. Like you just told me what to do. You know what I mean? Which again is why I feel like there's no bad guys here. I don't feel like I've been led astray necessarily. I've been shown the wrong thing so that I could discover the truth. Yes, absolutely. And that's what an adversary will do, but an enemy wouldn't even allow truths like this or any sort of semblance of any of it to be revealed at all. And this idea that there's gates up here, that some person on a whim, maybe somebody's like babysitting for like their babysitter called in, they have their 2-year-old at the lab where the human experiment's going on, and the little turd goes over there and just starts pushing buttons and floods this whole damn thing. I'm pretty sure there's a safety mechanism built into that.
I would think so.
Because when you're thinking of things outside of this, then you think, what are aliens? Like, what's outside of this? And this is where, like, the flat Earth model goes into all these extra land bits, and that's interesting. So, do you think that we're like miniatures in this little example of a reality, and that scaled up or is a much bigger reality that basically we are shrank down in, and that's what also aliens or extraterrestrials can do is they get in little machines, sort of like that movie Inner Space with Martin Short, and they
Yeah.
go real small and go in the blood vessels. Do you think that that's maybe what's occurring?
I am that person who never says never, right?
Fuck it.
This is one that when I feel it in my body doesn't feel like a yes, that's what's
Okay.
happening.
I like that. Okay, so you can
You
tell that.
know,
I can ask you a bunch of crazy questions. You could be like, I just don't feel that.
just for me, I'm like, yeah, I could understand. Like, I see the theory. I'm like, I can see how someone would think that in my body that doesn't feel resonant.
Right. So do you feel that space is a thing? Like other planets and stuff?
I,
In the way they're being presented to
in
us?
the way they're being presented, no, I, in my work in the Akashic records and past lives and all of that, I've seen all sorts of different kinds of planets and places and star systems. But it's not like what we're shown, So I do think there is a space, and I think it's wildly different than what we are aware of. I think maybe we're starting to tap into more of what it might look like or feel like or be, but I definitely think we would all be a little shocked in a probably very amazing way, right? To see what the reality is outside of this bubble.
That's what I feel like. I feel like it's super cool. And absolutely dope. And I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised with all of it. And I feel for sure I use the B word very, very sparingly because I understand its impact, but I believe that what we're talking about here is absolutely accurate. It feels the most, and if I'm programmed to feel that way, and then I'm nailing the algorithm, if we're a simulation, and really the whole thing is to anchor the dark, you know what I mean? And actually, we're going the other way, and we're the suckers who are thinking, oh, great, we're going that way, but we're the inverse of that for them. We're actually going that way. I'd be bummed out. I don't feel that that's what's going on, though. This whole
I
prison
don't
planet
either.
idea, any of the fears that we can cast upon this, because even when we go now to these sort of conversations where now we're talking about the structure of this place and reality and all of that, there's still some fear triggers that can come up to it. It seems like there are, there is an opportunity to express fear in any sort of level with any of these understandings because the energies seem to be balanced and represented in both. Even when you bring the UFO phenomena into it, not all of them are great experiences from the perspectives of the abductees, but the contactees say it's great. So what's the difference there? Is it different entities? Are you different? It's just
Mhm.
fascinating, this whole damn place. It kind of bums me out about Hollow Earth though, because I thought that was a cool thing. That they're little like fairies and gnomes and stuff like that in an inner sun world where mushrooms get the size of like the Empire State Building or something.
Right.
Jules Verne's ass action. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I do think that we would be pleasantly surprised at a lot of different pieces being opened up, to us. Like I think that the other piece that's interesting to me is, another practitioner friend of mine were talking the other day, and we both have kind of pulled back a little bit from working too much in energetic fields the last like couple months, really specifically. And I said, I'm doing a lot more like coaching, not as much like energy work with people, which is interesting. And she said, yeah, I am too. I said, what are you feeling with that? And she's like, I'm getting this sense that like the energy fields are getting manipulated right now, like pretty heavily, and that we really have to stay kind of like clean and out of them as much as we can in the way that we were in them. And, it's interesting because I'm like, I've been doing this work for a while now. And so for me to feel like it's not technically, I don't want to use the word safe zone, but it's what's coming through, right? It's not a safe zone to necessarily be playing and dancing around like energy fields right now. I'm like, what's being like manipulated? What frequencies are like tearing through energy fields that are distorting or creating or alchemizing? Like, what's happening? And at the same time, I'm kind of in this like internal knowledge of you don't need to know right now. Like just stay where where you're being led or where you're being guided. So I do think, all that being said, I think we are actually approaching something, right? And we all know when the media starts saying something, it's like, all right, well, the time clock is on,
Dookie.
the buzzer's happening.
It is happening. We just find ourselves in such an interesting time of experience, and I love it. I'm a boundless optimist like you, so I feel that there's no danger in this. I anchored the light with you, and I'm grateful that you're doing this
Mhm.
with us. It's just one of the most fascinating things to experience. Now, when I play the what if game, it's what's the best that can happen game, right? It's what's the best that can happen. So, in your best guess, funnest, most amazing, what's the best that can happen with all of this stuff? What is your little prediction for us here? I'm just curious.
Oh man.
Give us a
I'll
time
just,
frame, if you will, because I'm just curious what your thoughts are on it. We won't hold you to it, of course.
yeah. I do feel like 2025 feels like there will be something pretty monumental that will be clear to people.
Yeah.
And then it feels like there's this interesting 10-year cycle that like somewhere around 2035, there's just an entirely different existence by that point, is what it feels like to me. And to get to that, it feels like there's a lot of just almost like explosive like awareness that starts to happen. For me, like the ultimate from what I've seen, what I've communicated, what I've seen, whether it's movies or Gaia shows or, listening to practitioners, it's like, I would love for there to be so much truth blasted into the planet, and whatever that is, right? Because we all have our filters of what we think is true, but just so much truth that the oneness energy really becomes like a baseline.
Yeah.
Because I think that is something that I know that I'm here to help usher in. So it's like, if we can all just understand that, whatever this reality is, this is like the truth in this place and in this place and in this experience. And this is where we're actually going. And this is what these groups actually are, right? Not necessarily labeling you're good, you're bad, you're dark, you're light, but just like massive understanding, of what that is. And having the ability to actually, I think, utilize our power. Like, I would love to be able to like jetpack over, or like jump in my little like machine and be like, all right, I'll be there soon, and I think that being able to connect with, those galactic and star families, that's something that's just always like super close to my heart. Is I'm like, I just want to like jump back into like that home galactic energy and just feel that, okay, and it's like, there's so many beings, like you and I talked about this last time, like we know each other, right? Like we've already done this before in other incarnations, spaces, whatever we want to call it. It's like really getting to that place of an understanding too, where, there's just like a normal conversation of like, you see someone at like a coffee shop or somewhere and you're like, I know you, right? And there's this like understanding, right? Whereas now some people might be like, okay, yeah, but other people might be like, you're crazy, like get away from me, so I think it's like, I would love for what I feel like we have in our like world of our bubble, right, of awakening and consciousness, to just be more mass, like for people to just really understand and see whether they want to see or not, right? Like all of us to see a lot of the truths of what's actually going on. And I think that this planet has been through a lot of whatever we want to call it, right? Like waves, sinking, whatever has happened. And I
Right.
do think we're kind of at that, like, okay, we got to try something different, right? The other ways have not worked.
Yeah, it's that, greeting a problem with the same level of consciousness used to create it kind of a thing. And that is so done. It's just so different, and I know every generation has said, "Oh, my generation is different. I'm going to see not only the coming of Jesus, right? I mean, that was a big thing for Gma, is that she was going to see Jesus within her life, and maybe she did. I don't know, but the description of it was just very different from what they picked out. And even a guy that I've had on the show, this guy named Brandon Williams, he's amazing. His website's hilarious, called onestupidfuck.com. But this dude is a sovereign citizen guy, but not the one that's getting tased for going like, "Yeah, I know my rights, bro." And he is not that at all. This dude is actually showing people how to unsubscribe from the US corporation, meaning that you are actually a sovereign. And it's one of the craziest things. It's actually the most American thing you can do, is to withdraw from the parasite organization that has settled over an actual legitimate contract that was signed from our forefathers, founding fathers rather. And even he will tell you, as this dude that battles, not battles, he sees it as a battle, and even he is very resolved in this ideal. He goes over legal definitions like crazy. He reads books like this, that he just reads dictionaries. And
Mhm.
he's one of the most interesting dudes. But the way that he describes this change now is it's like 1776 without the bodies. And I love that approach, because that's how it feels. It's, we won't need this anarchy burning in the streets. No one will need to craft a guillotine. You should have done it a long time ago. Okay, so we're past that point now. Use the lumber to build a tree fort for the kids instead, and just hang out. It's this transitional period to where I don't see a violence erupting. I see people misconstruing some things and being confused, like you said, and running around and doing some stuff. And but that energy is going to find the energy that it's a match for, and all of that will be in its own play out. But like you, we're here to anchor the light. We know that this, as a second wave of volunteers, you want to say that we are in that generation there. That's our job. We go to our most happy, we do what we feel called to do, and we anchor light. And it's a beautiful thing to share this with you, darling, to be honest, because yes, you and I have known each other many, many times in many lives. And it's just an interesting thing to come across at this time with all of us here. And I'm ready for the UFOs. I'm ready to see something really, really cool. Really cool. Like some
Yeah,
really
I
cool.
would I would welcome in, Ashtar Command of Light, Galactic Councils, like whoever wants to drop in, I'm here for that.
Is there anything that you have been told that you haven't seen come to light yet that you can share with us?
Hmm. So before 2020 lockdown stuff started happening, was actually when I started really communing with a lot of the Arcturian Council. And they were showing me a lot of what started happening, like the lockdowns, people in their homes, like just all this stuff. One of the things that I was channeling through with some of my intuitive sisters was this interesting wave of frequency that was really harming people. And I think that that's actually something that's starting to already happen. This is like rabbit holes, whether you want to get into like, 5G, the frequencies that are being pumped out, whatever. But what I did see was a lot of like our cell phones, right? Like these. And so many people sleep with them. Like I put them outside of the room. Like I don't like them in the room, but people will sleep with them like right next to them. And I kept seeing this like almost shock wave that was happening from like the phones into people's heads and bodies that was really harming them at a cellular level. And so one of the messages that clearly came through to me was like, make sure you like, even though it's like simple and kind of silly to some people, like start telling them like, don't sleep with your phone next to you, like put it like on the other side of the room if it has to be in the room, or put it like the other side of the house, right? That was one piece. And the other piece that came through was just this consistent different show of chaos that's coming, like we've talked about. And it's just this like density or darkness that it's like it's felt. And it's not necessarily that, like I said, it's not something that's seen. It's not like a bomb. It's like people feel that shift. It's like in a movie when you see something and people are like, something's going on, right? And so those are the two kind of last pieces that continue to kind of come through in my vision. They drop in through multiple other spaces, right? That just haven't really happened yet. And I think that the biggest thing is that I'm starting to now understand, the frequency piece. Like I am constantly denouncing inorganic frequencies. Like it's something that I do in my containers. It's what I do with my clients. It's what I do at like nighttime when I set containers for sleep or during the day, is I'm imagining this bubble, like creating a bubble of alchemy. And I'm just denouncing these frequencies that are getting pumped out. And the other piece is constantly refining myself in a way that I know I am going into chaotic spaces at times in my human experience, because I'm deeper preparing for whatever is coming that's going to be chaotic. And, I think that, anybody who's even watching this, I think you're going to know, because I have people ask me, they're like, well, how do you know, like, if you're going to be in the chaos or you're going to be in the calm? And I'm like, well,
Oh yeah.
you just know. Like, if I ask you and I flip a coin and you have to tell me before the coin hits the table,
Calm.
you're going to know.
I've
Right.
already written it down on a sticky note, and this will be with me.
You are the calm and the chaos.
Right.
Yes.
It has now been added.
Yeah, so and those are the two big pieces that they've been with me for a few years now, and just kind of like I'm not waiting in a way that I'm like, oh, it's time, right? Though I'd be here for that. It's more I'm just preparing. Like I feel like I'm constantly in refinement for what's coming. And I think a lot of us are becoming more aware of like heavy metals and toxins and parasites and all these things, right? The coatings that are on our food, like people are just getting more awakened to this stuff. So we can start to get our bodies in order too, because I think that our cells are needing to be as strong as they can right now.
So interesting.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about the poke, but a lot of people say that that had something to do with it, and the clots and the jabs and all kinds of things. And so it is one of this just sort of opt out of the inorganic. And I love what you said about that, because it's just not natural. If we're not doing things like that, then let's just move on to something else. It's an incredible mind that you have, an incredible spirit. I'm grateful that you're raising children, because out of all the people that I've met quite a few folks. Not all of them should have been raising kids, but they bred for some reason. You were not that. You just have this disposition about you, this warrior goddess energy, but not a warrior at all. There's no need to prove anything, because it's not a battle, and you see it as I do, as this ride, as it's a trip, and we're all here to anchor the light. I can't thank you enough for this conversation. I mean, and any and all of them, all the ways, of course, to find you located down in the show notes. We've got a minute here. If you just want to wrap up with some promo. Let's do some self-drop promo for yourself here. What are you looking forward to? What do you got coming up that folks can take advantage of?
Love it. Yes. So I have the Brittany Renee experience that's going to be in November in New York City. So if you want more information on that, definitely hit my link tree, join the email list, the newsletter, and I'll be actually next week is kind of the launch for that. So on socials, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the things. Really excited about that. It's going to be a couple days. We're going to spend one day doing workshop, seminar, and live hot seat healing. We're going to do some somatic experiences. And then day 2 is a workshop with me and other industry leaders. And then we have a really fun VIP dinner that also is a whole VIP post experience. So it's something new. We haven't run like this before. Super excited. So that's the one plug I will give because that's the newbie that I'm birthing here in November.
God, I'm looking forward to that. That is so cool. And this is the thing. We're starting to meet up in the physical. And we
Yes.
do a thing in April, Contact at the Canyon, another event. So same thing. We're all getting together now. Y'all go see her. It's going to be linked down there. Brittany Renee, I can't thank you enough. We're going to have a bajillion more conversations. I'm looking forward to all of them. Thank you.